I can attest to that.
That's right.
She goes, oh,
Last time.
It's already down 2 years in a row.
and
We
it's
ready?
projected
Yeah.
to again.
We're ready.
All right, Mr. Stinson, in your absence, I've kind of been running the agenda, but I know that's typically what you do, so.
I'm happy to take it over. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order and receive comments from the public. None here today. Considering on requests for adjustments, anything from Mike or Jeannie?
We do have that one.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're talking about the letter from the legal attorney on the, yeah. You want to explain the details, the background on that?
We received a letter from an attorney on behalf of a customer in your district that claims, that alleges that the meter that we changed out has caused a leak on his side of the meter. We changed the meter, the customer's meter, in September of 2020, 2 years ago. He discovered this leak in July or August.
July 26th, July 26th of this year.
A year and 10 months ago. So we told him, the crack is on your side, it's your responsibility. That was the last we heard of it until we got this letter from an attorney demanding payment. The customer claimed they paid $389 to repair their leak and would like reimbursement. We just got the letter Monday, Monday.
October 14th.
Is the leak at the meter or is it down the line? No, but at the meter?
It
was
was,
on the meter, what they call a female adapter. That's what the plumber ties when he ties to our meter.
now, when Amoresco changed the meter, they did unscrew that fitting to put the meter in, I'm guessing, or no?
No, typically, we just unscrew our meter connector.
Okay,
We don't have to touch the home.
All right. So
In
we,
this case, we did change our meter connector. So we did change that 2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah, it's still his pipe, we didn't change his pipe, we didn't alter his pipe, but we did screw into his pipe.
So they're asking for the
300.
reimbursement of the fees for the
$389.
fix, as well as to go back over the last 2 years to look at monthly water bills,
No,
just the
just
expense.
Just the plumbing
Okay.
expense.
It was their expense, right?
Well, it was what we call their side of the meter, but
Which is their expense, right? Well, I don't see.
they're trying to make the allegation that it was related to the meter
The
change.
damage when the-
Good it had been.
Not 2 years. No, if we cracked it, it cracked when we put the meter in. You didn't.
So how did,
Leak the day we.
so how did they discover the leak now? Like, was it leaking all over the garage floor or something? That's
No,
my
I think He
question.
got an alert on Water Smart that he was getting continuous usage.
Okay, and that alert hadn't happened prior that we know of anyways. Okay.
And where, what property? Where is it?
The address,
I don't think we can give that.
we can. That's
We're gonna
right.
check with Brian. We just give the account number, I think.
So what neighborhood, Jim? Is it in Harper's Landing?
Yes.
Yes.
So is it anything to do with Tachys or Easy Fiber or any of these guys? Did it happen while they were doing their stuff?
We don't.
Well,
So nothing else happened to the homeowner that would have caused the leak and any outside forces or anything like that?
Not that we're aware
This is
of.
the drought. We've got lots of people that have cracked pipes because of the drought.
I mean, I don't know what's our,
And just, so this is we got a letter from an attorney representing a homeowner in Harper's Landing that has had a leak at his meter, was discovered back in July of this year, July 26th. The attorney and I guess the homeowner are alleging that the leak was caused by the changing out, upgrading of the meter, which was done in September of 2020. As requesting reimbursement, demanding reimbursement of $389 for the plumbing repair to that broken pipe.
Where's the break?
the break is on the customer
What
line.
they call, what we call the female adapter. It's what their plumber uses to adapt to our meter. It's on their piping.
But it's at the meter,
It's on the customer side of the meter.
but right at the meter.
Mhm.
No,
No, we've got a meter connector. It's at the meter connector, which is,
just wondering like how far from the actual meter?
I can show you a picture.
Is it like
It's
Inches or?
3 inches away
Okay.
from the meter connector.
All right, and so, and we've got,
We use a meter connector to change out the meter, so we don't have to alter the customer's line.
yeah,
They connect to our meter connector.
and so, okay, so the meter was changed out in when?
2020.
20?
September of 2020.
So we've got, and so we've got water use data from then until now for the usage, and there hasn't been elevated usage.
Until July of 2022.
I mean, that was the heart of the drought, right?
For this year, it was,
I mean, the other 2 years weren't that bad, so.
And how quickly did they address the issue once it started to show up on the meter?
from what the document here, I think they did it promptly.
Yeah, they called us and requested a leak check at the meter. We went out there and said, yeah, you got a leak, it's on your side.
So it wasn't
They
something
fixed
that went on for a month, they caught it, they had like some kind of
Yeah.
alert set, so they were
Yeah,
proactive. And have they been a customer for a long time? These are all subjective things, but
Yeah.
things that are good to know. They've been a customer a long time. Have they come to you with a bunch of requests in the past? Is it kind of,
I can check.
you know, were they proactive about addressing the problem? All subjective things, but y'all have a lot of discretion in providing relief or not providing relief. And those are some things that you may find persuasive in making a decision about whether to provide relief and to what extent you provide relief.
Mike,
I have
is
a
it,
question about relief. I think this is maybe the second time that something like this has come up, where I think someone else had a leak that they were issuing with, and we like gave them some grace. What kind of relief amounts do we have available for discretion? Is that like a normal thing that we deal with? I mean, it's come up twice in a couple of months, so I'm assuming it happens fairly often. I'm just not sure if that is built into the budget or how that is typically done.
Good question. So staff has discretion up to 1,000
Yes.
for requests for relief. So a lot of times these are handled outside of a board discussion because you can have any number of them. But water sewer bills, you've got pretty much complete discretion on providing relief based on whatever facts and circumstances you believe merit that relief. Taxes are a completely different thing. Taxes, you're very limited in providing relief unless it meets very detailed requirements under the tax code. So it's almost the mirror opposite of what we have for water sewer. So this one, I don't know what the dollar amount is. I think a little bit late. I don't know if it's over the discretion.
389.
It's just one that was denied by staff. And so that can happen as well. So staff can have discretion up to 1,000. They can grant it. If they don't, if they deny it, then it would come before the board.
Makes sense.
If the customer said, I'm not satisfied with staff's decision, I'll let it come before the board. Then you could have a number that's lower than that $1,000 amount come to you, and then you make a decision about whether you want to change the decision that was made by staff.
Mike, have you talked to this customer?
No. No. We talked, I mean, customer service denied his request, and we got the letter from the attorney. So he's never requested to talk to anybody about customer service, never requested to talk to the board, just went to an attorney.
Oh, okay.
is there a
Yeah, we don't get a lot of those.
Yeah.
That's
hard for me. I remember. Tell you the truth.
Mike, is there a possibility that it could have been caused by the changing out of the, I mean, I know we don't know for a fact, but I mean, is it a possibility that it's a,
Not that long. No, if it was 30 days ago or something, absolutely. But not 2 years.
and I don't think the dollar amount is that significant. It's a matter of setting a precedent and a matter of how you're going to handle this going forward when other people start coming with it, so.
30 days, 45 days, even 60 days, 90 days, we probably wouldn't, you wouldn't even hear about it. We'd just take care of it. 2 years is just way outside. You know, even a plumber, it's not gonna give you the 2-year warranty.
Right.
They'll give you 90 days.
Okay. So is this up for us to take a vote on, or just to make a decision, or what do we need to do?
You ever seen any of those fail, Mike, before? That,
Oh, yes.
you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens in a lot of times, you know, kids will jump up and down on those meter boxes and they'll crack them.
Wow.
Ground shrinking will crack them. You know, it's not a big point. Big point where their PVC connects to our brass.
But it's on their
the
side.
weakest point.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. It's in the ground. It's in the ground
It's
box.
in a ground box. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay,
right there.
yeah. Okay.
Where brass of the meter connects to the plastic PVC out of home.
Now, we just got this Monday, I think. And we have two, I guess we could make a decision today or invite the gentleman to come make his case before the board if you felt like that would be appropriate.
Well, I mean, based on what I'm hearing today, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be anything that either the service contract, the meter people put in that they did wrong, or that we did wrong with any servicing aspect of it. I mean,
And he's got an allegation that when they, and Mike connected it, they used schedule 80 instead of schedule 40. Do you know any details
We
about
did
that?
not alter his pipe whatsoever.
So I guess he's stating one thing that Mike disagrees with for sure in that regard. So
He's stating that the existing connecting pipe is Schedule 40 pipe, which was his existing pipe. And the plumber that fixed it had to change it to Schedule 80. That was
What is-
Schedule 40 when we got there.
What does 80 and 40 mean?
It's the grade of the pipe. Schedule 80 is a thicker, stronger pipe, but Schedule 40 is perfectly acceptable in plumbing code, and that's what he already had.
so can we get a clarification from Brian on what can be divulged, whether the name, the address, or,
Yeah, not the name or the address, just the account number, unless they waive their right to confidentiality.
well, and the only reason I'm asking that is because maybe there was other things going on on that particular street. Maybe a tractor drove across his yard, or a yard man, or, something like that. If,
We're certain that it couldn't be related to the installs of the fiber optic lines in the neighborhood.
I mean,
I'm
that
just
was-
thinking like my yard, as we speak, they're ripping it up right next to that box. As we speak, as I was backing out of my driveway an hour ago, that's
Yeah.
exactly where they're ripping up my yard, right by that box.
I guess it's possible that it
That's
could
just-
be related. We weren't called out there because when we were called out there for a leak check, there was no excavation going on. There was no practice contractors or Easy Fiber or any of those people at that area at that time.
When did TACUS start? I mean, I feel like that's right around that
It is.
time.
It is both Tachus and.
There's
ET
nothing
over
dug
there.
up around that area.
No.
Right now.
well, the plumber came out and changed it, so the plumber would have dug it up, right?
Not until after we told him it was his problem.
Oh, so when we looked at the leak, there was no evidence that Tachus had been out there, no disruption of the ground or anything like that.
All right, that makes sense then.
So it seems like it's drought related if there's no other evidence pointing to anything else.
Yeah.
Well, and again, the plumbing report is still putting fault regarding a Schedule 80 and Schedule 40 connect. That they're saying that's part of the reason.
But it could be part of the reason, right? But the Schedule 40 that's their piping. So,
Correct.
Standard.
yeah.
That's very, very.
I'm just gonna say, I'm pretty sure that's what ours coming into the house is.
I'm sure we're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all built by the same builders.
Well, I would tend to say, if he wanted to carry it further, maybe we could pursue it. But as of now, my opinion would be that we just, I don't know the verbiage, but just deny it because there's no plausibility or no likelihood that we could have caused it or the contractor would have caused it. I mean, I don't,
That's a fair statement.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree with that unless he's interested in coming in and trying to make a case. Maybe
tell
he's
us
got,
something.
something that we're not seeing, but yeah, I mean, that's 2 years later. It's hard to find fault, I think. I'm just thinking if it were me, what would my thoughts be? Hard to
So-
find fault.
I mean, I had the same situation happen at my house in Fort Worth where I had the pipe and there was like a little spacer. And then right on the opposite end on my side of that spacer, I lived in an older house and the washers had dried up inside it and it caused a small leak. Plumber came out, cost a couple $100. He took out the old washers, put in a new washer, tightened it up, and I was good. It was $200 or something like that. But that's all it was.
They're very, very similar.
So, yeah.
Almost the same exact
And
circumstance.
I had the same conversation with Fort Worth Water when I lived in Fort Worth. They said, unfortunately, it stinks. It's on your side. You're a half inch too much on your side, but here's a plumber list.
Yeah.
So I feel for him. But also we have to set precedent as well that, you know,
I think we've tried to be fair here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've certainly kicked it around long enough and came to the, I think the consensus that we probably shouldn't just pay it automatically without more information is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to set a precedent. Because if we did this one and other people have the same thing, well, would anybody else have a problem? We'd be paying.
I would do it in Mud 6. I would in my own, so it's giving me ideas.
Well, and the thing about it is it's not a lot of dollars. And even if we set a precedent, we probably wouldn't have more than 3 or 4 people a year try it. But why would we even want that? You know what I mean? Why would we even subject this board
It's
to
the
that?
2 years thing that I can't get past.
Right. If it was, you know.
I just can't get past that.
It wouldn't be.
look it up.
So do we need to take a motion to deny it or what do we need to do?
How do you notify?
Or do you just have direction from us that we're
I
not
think we
gonna?
need to reply, we have to respond to the attorney, to his attorney in writing. This one,
Do we want to formally invite the resident to come to the next board meeting?
Well, I mean, I
to
guess
plead
we
their
could-
case?
Put in there, maybe in the reply that if there's further information or further evidence you want to present, please come to the board with it.
Yeah.
You know, something other than what you're saying.
So plenty of extra seats.
They've got quite a long, or the attorney has a long discussion about the Schedule 80, Schedule 40 over tightening, a lot of allegations that I think be
Well, let me
worthwhile
ask this
hearing it from the homeowner.
Let me ask this question. You guys are in the know as far as the verbiage and all that. Is it something that we should consider refunding to this gentleman? From a staff standpoint, what would be your recommendation?
You already denied
They
it.
already did it.
So that's, you see, it. You don't see enough evidence to say, oh, let's go ahead and just give him his money off the bat, right? Which is why you got the attorney letter.
That's correct.
And the information in the attorney letter hasn't changed your mind at this point, right, Mike? Is that what I'm understanding?
we over-tightened it 2 years ago. We didn't touch it, but.
Yeah.
So
So
it
I
was
don't,
over-tightened, it wasn't 2 weeks ago, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It should have broken 2 years ago. We had anything to do with it.
All right. well, I think we had enough discussion on it. If I'm satisfied, if you guys
The
are.
direction of staff is just that the board is not inclined to make any adjustments, but to invite the customer to the next meeting if they would like to have further discussion with the board about it.
Very good.
How long a piece of 80 or whatever they put in, that what,
Just a fitting.
oh, it's just a fitting.
One fitting, 1 inch long.
Oh, okay, so it's not even the pipe, it's just a
Yeah,
fitting.
there's a picture of it, you can. see.
Oh.
But this long,
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, which is items 4 through 8. Would anyone like to pull any of those items off and move them to the regular agenda?
I don't necessarily need to pull anything, but I did find one little, maybe it was just a syntax on the minutes from the November 21st meeting on item number 12 of those minutes. It says Mr. Williams directed the trustees to the monthly operations report. Should that's, are we referred to as trustees in some cases? or are we referred to as directors or? Well, when it's at the trustee meeting, I understand, but yeah. So I don't know if that makes a difference whatsoever, but I just wanted to point that out. That's all I had.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor? Motion carries. Moving on to item 9 in the regular agenda, receive the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division report.
Just a couple of things to highlight real quick. In your packet on page 39 is what I call like a year-end recap of some of the projects we've done. What this is we come and we ask for money, we say stuff broken, we don't always come back and show you what we did with it, so. That recap some of the projects, the before and after pictures, if they were on schedule, on budget, and if they weren't, why they. So we usually try to produce that around October every year, so we'll make sure we do it. Don't. Next item on the strategic plan. November 2nd is the next stakeholders meeting. That's going to be an important one because that's the second one to the end. Also, we're talking about 8 different alternatives and the cost of those 8 different alternatives. So between November and January, there's going to be a lot of discussions with the stakeholders and the MUDs just to talk about the path forward. Because in January, we're going to be hoping for a vote from the MUDs on which way to go. And then from the trustees in February. Questions? We might have.
I have a couple questions. I'm trying to find the page. I usually don't make a lot of notes, but I did this time, mainly after those stakeholder meetings. We did a couple of road trips. And so I just found myself naturally attracted to water treatment plants as I tend to drive through cities nowadays. And pointing out all my knowledge to my wife. So I had a question, the water plant number 4, ground storage tank number 2.
Yes.
As one of the alternatives that they mentioned in the stakeholder meeting, basically as a big dirty water tank in the case of like a flood or a hurricane, instead of oversizing the plant, you just put the nasty water in here and then flush it out. I drove around. Is that one of those types of things where it has kind of like a T at the top where you can tell it kind of floats and it goes up and then obviously, okay, cool.
Of course, there's drinking water in that one, but it's the same premise.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of like visually as I drive by, and one of my my wife's aunt is on the water boards in the Abilene area. So then I learned more about how they did the Ranger. One of the areas in Abilene where they just put in the MBR filtration. So it's currently we have a conventional water filtration system, which has been going for like 50 to 70 years, roughly. It's kind of been that general process. But as governments change and water quality enhances and rules change, we're looking at like this thing called MBR. And it's more advanced, but it costs more money. But it also allows us to have better potential water cleanliness in the future, and gets us up further into code for the future of where the world is going versus where we currently are. There could be grandfathering, but again, I'm just kind of like start thinking about those things. Anyways, the question I have, there's a list here of projects. I don't remember what page it's on, but I know in some of those alternatives, we were going to potentially cover some of those projects.
Yes.
Is anything on that list that was going to be potentially covered? It's on page 23. Yeah, so 5.0 projects and funding. Like for example, one of the alternatives is to erase some of the lift stations to potentially make it more gravity fed, depending on how cost effective that is or time intensive it is to go 10 feet down or 40 feet down, and just all the different methods for doing water connections. I'd be interested to know which ones of these are on those alternative lists, and maybe revisit that after November to know these are things that we'd like to fund, but maybe let's pause on whichever ones that may get picked up in one of the alternatives? And if they do, then hey, it's already being covered.
Yeah.
As an option, but I mean, I'm still really new. I'm just trying to
No.
understand the verbiage.
That's perfect. So on page 23, if you look in the far right column under status, anything that's on hold is on hold for the exact reason. he said.
Okay,
We
cool.
don't want to put anything into the ground that we're gonna change out, rip out, and not use later, so. That's why also, if you'll see the financials, well, the R&R stuff, you'll start to see the balances increasing because we're collecting the funds, we're just not spending them. Because if we don't do anything in plant 2, we still need the funds, or plant 1, we still need the funds to do those projects. So
Okay.
everything that's on hold is on hold.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah, because there's a massive pipe that runs in basically in the middle of the woodlands, right? It's I mean, it's several feet in diameter, I believe, and we're just potentially taking some of that capacity in one of the alternatives to not have to do a completely new pipe. But there's already that open air space in the pipe, so it just makes sense to be more cost effective if that option gets picked. And obviously we'll be able to go through more of the alternatives, but there's 8 different variations at this point. I had one other question on the, I think I've mentioned before the chlorine levels. I don't mean to beat a dead horse on that, but it seems like we're getting really close to that maximum. I think we're at 3.98 and the max is 4 to be safe. I'm wondering, is there any way to get a history of like maybe month by month of where those levels typically are? I know you said that you'll typically take those measures in the middle of the day at some point when there's less flow, which is fine. But it seems like those levels are a little bit higher than they were last month. And I'm just curious if there's a day or season or a day or time based on maybe the last 12 months that can show, hey, it's perfectly steady, or maybe it is rising, because it's also within a couple miles to where 3 out of 5 of us live, as well as thousands of others, of course.
That goes in the SCADA, so I think they pull it every 15 minutes on SCADA, and this is the manual time they check it, so. Yeah, I can get that down and review it, I can get it to him so he can get it to you.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. That's all I have for that stuff.
Okay, any other questions for Chris? If not, we have item number 10, the attorney's report.
No general items today. I do have the annual review of our investment policy under 11 and then some discussion about annexation. I'll have any general questions for me before we move on to 11 and 12.
I have one attorney type question. As I was looking over the budget, I noticed the amount of water that Conroe uses. Is there any update on them paying for water?
That's kind of more of a river authority. There's URP, but I don't think there's been much movement there.
You know where it sits,
Okay.
partial payment.
And the only thing that they pay for is surface water, not groundwater, right? Or do I have that
Yeah, they
backwards?
have their own groundwater plants, so they're supposed to pay URP fee.
Right, they're just paying the 2016 rate.
But that part of it applies to surface water, part of it applies to what they pump out of the ground too.
Okay,
2 components to their fee.
okay. But they are paying something. They're just paying the 16, right? Okay.
So let me piggyback off of that real quick, because you just made a comment. So they're paying something ongoing, but they're just not paying the current rate ongoing. So they're paying based on the 16 rate, but they're still paying based on that rate. So what they owe, that $14 million that we talked about, is, I guess, the differential between the 16 rate and the
Correct.
current rates as they've missed
Plus
payments?
penalties and.
Or not.
Right.
Okay.
Legal.
Legal advice.
Okay.
That's why.
It's closer to 20 million.
Several years.
Yeah, Conroe is short paying, Quadvest is not paying.
Who's Quadvest?
Quadvest, they're not paying anything at all.
Private water provider, private company.
Okay, so that they get the water from SJRA and then route it through them?
They just pump their own groundwater, but it was cheaper for them to join an existing GRP instead of having to have their own and have a plan for reducing groundwater usage, because they would have had to come up with their own surface water supply. So it was easier for them just to band together with the other GRP participants within the river than to try to come up with their own.
Okay.
So their cost for being a part of that GRP was to pay pumpage fees on the amount that they pulled out of the ground. They're now not paying any of that. And that shortfall is also being pursued via litigation.
Which we're starting to hear flack about, because I've heard already out in the community, why do we have to have increased water rates because Conroe's not paying their bills?
Great question.
That's
That
been all
is a
over
great
our
question.
local Facebook page.
Yep.
Magnolia.
Very slow court process.
Right.
Okay, if there's no other general questions, I'll move on to item number 11. The annual review of the investment policy. Talked about before, the Public Funds Investment Act requires that districts conduct an annual review of their policy. Our firm conducts that review on our district clients' behalf, and we make recommendations to our boards as to whether any changes to the existing policy are necessary. We do have a handful of minor revisions that we're recommending be made this year. They're in your packet on a red line. Pretty self-explanatory. We do need a motion to adopt the resolution evidencing completed your annual review and to adopt the amended investment policy to incorporate those changes.
So when you say annual review, that's something we're basically paying your firm for, is that correct?
We do it for all of our district clients because we have a standard form of investment policy that includes all of the requirements under the Public Funds Investment Act. And so we keep abreast of any laws that change at the legislature, or if there's changes that we need to make to the agreements that are attached to that investment policy that have to be entered into with banks that we do business with, the collateral security agreements that we talked about before that ensure that that district has collateral elsewhere if we're solely relying on the FDIC insurance, the $250,000. Sometimes there'll have to be changes to those agreements and we need to make modifications to the policy because the exhibits, are attached to the policy. But yes, short answer is yes, we review that annually for all of our district clients.
So nothing that we as a board need to have a committee that looks at that and reviews it and then comes to the full board and says, here's what we recommend. That's what you're tasked with. Okay. So you say some minor revisions, anything that we should know about that was, and I know you said minor and I'm going to use the word significant, but is there anything that we should know about? Not that we even knew the old policy, but.
No, I mean, the boilerplate, the main language change is really on 67, and that's language that we have to have in all district contracts now, whether it's with a landscape company that does the mowing, or whether it's with a bank that does our investments. The legislature has passed laws that require us to get representations from those entities that they do not boycott energy companies or firearm companies or trade organizations, or they don't do business with terrorist organizations or Sudan or Iran or all that. So we included some additional language to address the certifications as to boycotting energy companies and firearm entities. So I would call that minor because that's something that's more of what we got to do for all contracts, but we couldn't.
As we read this, or when I reviewed it, the blue type is the adds, the red type is the remove, which is one simple change, and the rest is all the same. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's
I thought so. Looks like very minimal changes.
So we do need a motion to accept the amended changes.
That's correct. And adopt the resolution evidencing the annual.
We approve the annual review and then also approve the amended investments and disbursement policy.
Right.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, item number 12, annexation. We talked about this last couple of meetings. So Conroe did conduct their public hearing, and then they did approve at their regular meeting last Thursday, I think it was, the strategic partnership agreement and the consent resolution to allow for the district to annex the property, the 150 something acres into the district. I've not yet received a copy of that consent resolution. We have to reference that in the order adding the land. So I'm going to ask y'all to defer on these items today, and then we'll do it all next month. I can, if y'all want me to, I can kind of walk through each of these items. It'll make it a little bit quicker next month, or you just want me to wait?
Probably wait. I mean, would be my opinion would be best, because that way it'll be fresh for us.
Then we'll just carry the same item forward next month. But everything was done on Conroe's side, so we're just waiting on the copy of the order consenting to the annexation, but we should be teed up to get all this stuff done next month. I will tell you that I'm also coordinating with the River Authority, because the River Authority has to expand their service area to include almost all of the properties annexed by the district. Ed and Chris are working to get that on the end of November, December. First week of December. So next month, what we'll be able to do, and that also, so they have to extend their service area. The second thing they have to do is approve a supplemental agreement with MUD 39, because we need additional capacity for the project. The development company, part of the agreement we'll have for them next month is their reimbursement agreement for the public infrastructure funds that they put out up front for this project. One of the things that they're going to have to do is advance the funds to the district to purchase the capacity that's necessary to serve this property. We're not going to put it out of pocket. So they're going to provide that in tranches. It's not going to be, we need, and I'm just making up capacity numbers, 300, 500 units total. It may be a 100 unit takedown, and then a 300 unit takedown, and then, another 100 unit takedown. But whatever they need for this first phase, they're going to need to provide those funds to the district so that we can purchase that capacity from the River Authority. So we're hopeful to be able to have all these items approved by our district at the meeting in November. And in the first week of December, the River Authority will be able to approve its two agreements. And then the district can move forward with providing service.
So Brian, those funds that the Woodlands Development Company will have to provide, is that like for a period of time, or is it for a volume? How do you determine what funds they're going to put up front?
So they're a good question, and especially for our newer directors who weren't here when we went through the accountings with the River Authority. So over the course of 40 years, there have been 6 different interim accountings for the cost of capacity, water sewer capacity within the Woodlands. And that's done, and I'm sure that staff can get you a copy of that 6th and final if y'all like it. But it goes through all the different infrastructure that is necessary to provide water and sewer service within the Woodlands on a wholesale basis. And it divided that number, oversimplifying, but 30,000 feet. It divides that number by the amount of capacity that was anticipated to be needed by all the Woodlands districts up through, was it 2025 or 2027? And so, and of course, projections change, uses change. You can have a low density projection change to a 20-story building. But based on the best information we had in 2018, which is when the final accounting was done, it projected forward another 10 years about what we thought capacity needs were going to be. So each district at that time, all 10, purchased the capacity that they needed to get through that period. Of course, MUD 39 didn't know you would possibly do an annexation, so you didn't purchase capacity for this additional annexation property. There is some additional capacity, and it depends on where property is and what different bottlenecks there are within the wholesale system. But there is some additional capacity within the wholesale water and sewer system that's not being utilized, that can still be purchased at the original cost that was in the 6th and final accounting. So that divided number by the amount of capacity at that time was like $1,500 for one and $1,800 for the other. So around $3,200 per water sewer connection. So that's where we come up with the number. And I believe we've confirmed that as for some of the initial development that's going to be done in MUD 39, there's additional existing capacity available that can be purchased at the what was the current cost in the sixth and final accounting. Now, as we move on down the road to some of the other development, longer term, there may need to be some modifications or extensions of existing systems. And what the deal was with the sixth and final accounting was that after that accounting, any additional infrastructure that was necessary to serve a particular district, regardless of whether it's property that was already in their boundaries or whatever they annex, was going to be on that district's dime alone. It wasn't going to be shared among all the other districts. And so that was the deal when we closed out the interim accountings. And Howard Hughes understands that as well. So they're going to be responsible for any additional infrastructure that would be necessary to provide the service. That's going to be an additional capacity cost. It's not going to be the $3,200. It's going to be whatever $3,200 plus whatever that costs for an extension of a water line or force main or whatever. They would have to provide those funds in addition to the funds necessary for the internal water sewer drainage to serve the district. And they carry that until they create sufficient value to entitle them to potential reimbursement. And it's at their business risk that they don't create sufficient value to entitle them to full reimbursement. The district doesn't take that risk. They take that risk. And that's standard in the MUD work.
So in this agreement between the MUD 39 and the Woodlands Development Company or Howard Hughes, whatever the legal verbiage is going to be in there that gives us wiggle room and says if there's cost increases for whatever reason, they're borne by the developer. Is that correct?
All costs related to the water sewer drainage infrastructure is for this additional property is at the developer's cost with a right to reimbursement subject to them creating sufficient taxable value.
Even any increases that San Jacinto River Authority may impose?
Right.
Okay.
And so this is all part of the property. It's going to be in the defined area, and and that'll be the next step. And once we complete this annexation, then we'll start going into the creating the defined area and then having a potential, election after that.
Gotcha. Okay.
A lot of words to say defer.
So my question is, do we need a vote to defer since it's an agenda item? Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 13, the general manager's report. I have a few items to highlight from our trustee meeting. I reported that I'm continuing to have discussions with the University of Houston Geoscience Department on subsidence data. You may recall that I reported, at least to the trustees about a month ago, that they have, and you may have seen a recent newspaper article or even a TV story about their release of some current data. That information was, what I understand, went from the Gulf Coast, Galveston area, all the way up through College Station, but they have the ability to kind of amplify information in certain areas, and they've offered to give us a proposal for doing that for Montgomery County and Woodlands area. I've had a meeting. I invited Dr. Neil Gaynor, who's a PhD in geoscience arena, to listen to their information. If we're going to continue to look at what the potential there, and if we think it's worthwhile, present it to the trustees at a future meeting. So more to come on that. We also talked about trying to set a meeting for November, December with San Jacinto River Authority, their financial advisor, and our Woodlands Water Agency finance committee, to start looking at the potential for their bond funding. They have significant expenses and investments that need to be made in their infrastructure over the next 10 years. The current thought is that would be best served through a bond, a municipal type bond sale, and we would recover those bond debt expenses through a separate line item on our retail water bill. So we want to know what that may look like. So we'll be trying to set that meeting for November, December. We're also have begun new discussions with HARC regarding an old topic. Back when the One Water Task Force was meeting, There was a committee put together that had some interest in utilizing Hark to do a customer information portal, using their technology and their expertise to where a resident who had an interest in groundwater, surface water, stormwater in Montgomery County and the Woodlands could be a one-stop shop, and they could do as deep a dive as they were interested in into that topic. It got put on a big pause when the One Water Task Force dismantled, if you will. But our Public Education Committee for the Woodlands Water Agency has an interest in relooking at that topic. So we'll be talking more about that. And sorry to report that our efforts with TACUS to resolve our outstanding system damage invoices is kind of stalled. I did have a conversation with their chief financial officer Wednesday evening of last week. So we'll be trying to get those, get back going again and try to get that resolved. The only other thing is the Public Education Committee met before the trustee meeting and looked at monthly water bill comparisons for several entities in our region and agreed to go ahead and publish that. So you may have seen that in some of the social media outlets. It has the monthly water bill for us and other communities. I think 10,000 gallons of water, 6,000 sewers, what our typical resident uses. And then the tax bill, ad valorem tax, is also included.
And what is that on, Jim?
It's been Facebook, I think, Twitter.
But what group? I missed it.
Well, it was prepared by our staff, the comparison, but the Public Education Committee
Oh, I got you.
reviewed it prior. They had a committee meeting prior to the trustee meeting and thought it was worth letting the public know about that comparison. And that concludes my report, unless you have other questions. If not, item 14, the trustees report.
I was unable to attend, so.
And I think the summary is in your packet. I covered most of what I thought were the highlights. So if you have any additional questions, let us know. If not, we'll go on to item 50. But I don't think we have a need for a closed session today. So that takes us down to 17, discuss any matters for replacement on a future agenda. Anything from Miriam?
I thought that it might be beneficial, and I was gonna try to schedule a meeting with Maureen, but it might be beneficial for us to do it in our group as an agenda item. If we could review the investments, and I know we talked about the investment policy and some changes, but where the investments are as they currently stand, and I know there's a good report in here, but it might just be something that would be beneficial to all of us to kind of see that again and kind of just go through it. In light of the fact that as we take on this new area of the mud, and somewhere down the road, we're going to be talking about bonds and so forth and so on. And it would be good to see where the investments are, what the potential bonding might need to be for the district, and just kind of put our arms around it, because quite honestly, I'm kind of lost.
We'll be happy to do that. Now, I want to emphasize the bonding that we're talking about would be River Authority bonds. None of the MUDs would be selling any bonds. You would just be at some point agreeing to help carry the debt service.
I'm talking about the new annex property that down the road. And I get that it's going to be that special purpose, that whatever, what was the verbiage? Yeah, defined area. Thank you. I'll get it eventually. I know it's specific to that, but it would just be a good idea for us to kind of understand the global area of where the investments are compared to what's bond obligations and future bond obligations. I mean, I don't know, you guys chime in on that. I'm happy to do it alone, but.
I have a question about the annexation bonds. I was under the impression that whenever investments are picked, they're picked by the investment team, not actually approved or picked by us specifically. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have certain things that I have to abide by as being a financial advisor.
Yeah, and I'm only asking for a review. I'm not asking to have any input, because I fall into the same criteria, but yeah, just as a review.
We will put that on there.
I had one question about the trustee. the trustee meeting.
Mhm.
There was a loss of $43,000 in the current period. Net loss for current period was $43,000. Is there any light on that?
That can happen from month to month. I mean, that was the first month of our new fiscal year.
Okay.
I'd be happy. I don't,
The last.
the last month, excuse me. Then
I noticed that as well, but I noticed the year end had a positive 200 something $1,000. So I figured it was a timing issue with bills and so forth. And
I'm not too worried about it based on all the other numbers. Everything else looks great. I just, yeah, figured it was some kind of.
The year.
Who is this milestone? Shelley's completed 12 years. Nobody thought that was worth mentioning.
well, that's kind of an off. We usually do 10, 15, 20.
hey, every year at this point is a milestone, right?
That's right.
Any additional year is a milestone. Well, congratulations, Shelley.
Yeah, 12 years.
I guess
That's it.
so. Nothing else. We will stand adjourned at 12:50.